Hi, it's Jav here. Welcome everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining me today. So, as you can see, it's just a slideshow presentation of what we're going to be achieving with this part 1 and part 2, and there will be a part 3 and a part 4. So this is the multiple pages method of distressing the edge of your papers and giving them that aged, worn look. If that's what you're going for with whatever journal you're making, doing one page at a time or two at a time is very, very tedious and time consuming. But for those of you that don't want tedium and something super slow, but something fast-paced and speedy, well, this is the series for you. What I encourage you to do, if you haven't seen it already, please check out part 1. It will be listed for you in the link below. Please join me now as we continue with part 2. Right, so that's with paper, you're getting that distressed effect, very natural. And you could use this if you were creating old letters. You could definitely use this because it's very natural in its dog-eared edges. Well, that's my opinion anyway. But yeah, I love it. I really love this, and it's fast. Yes, you're going to have to give your hands a workout, and please be careful. Remember. But that's what it looks like. So very effective. All right, so we're just going to do some very plain coffee staining here. Just go in like this, and with coffee staining, it just depends on what you're doing and how quickly you want to get things done. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this just to mop up everything. And already it is getting into those little nooks and crannies. And normally I have a paper towel. For those of you that are doing this for the first time, please, if you don't want coffee stained hands, please wear plastic gloves. All right, so can you see it's already going around those edges? Okay, I really need another place to put this, so I might do it on this side. I'm just going to kind of crumple it there while we continue. And all right. I do have tutorials on how I do my coffee tea staining, but this one is just, we're doing this differently because I want to kind of create a bit of a rapid distressed effect for you. So let's just get these papers done first. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. I mean, look how distressed the edges are on that. I mean, that's so exciting, really, don't you think? Well, I think so. Now, normally, when you're doing this, when you're doing it in a tray, there would be quite a bit of runoff on the edges. So I'm going to create that effect. By just swirling this around. But I think the edges have already picked up the colors, as you can see. So now I'm just going to lay this back down. I can fit both. Can you see both at all? Sorry about the positioning. But I love this tray because it allows for 2 A4 sheets. side by side, and I'm just going to do them all over the place. Now be very gentle if you're ending up doing it the way I am. And what you can do now is just haphazardly so there we have it. Now as you can see, the edges are already darkened. They've already captured that. Parts of it might not. That's when you would go in with your what do you call those things again? Ink pad. All right, I'm going to put this out of the way. If you feel like you've got too much of the coffee, just swirl it around all sorts of ways. This is what I love about coffee staining, tea staining in a tray. And just let them dry outside if it's summer for you. Over here it's winter for us, so this will be near a heater for me. And if there's excess and you don't want the excess, you're just going to easily just go like that. But the excess is where you get the grunge. If you get rid of the excess too soon, you lose the grunge. But if you don't want grunge, that's when you get rid of all the moisture. And you do that then. So I don't mind. This is more of a tutorial, but there's still quite a bit of liquid. But if you like the grunge, just let it sit and stew near a heater at a safe distance. Let the air kind of circulate over it, or outside. So I'm just going to move this. Hey everyone, I'm back. So it's the 6th of July 2022. So I did dry out the papers that we coffee stained together. Parts of it, without being inked, did get that faux ink effect. So some parts of it got it, other parts it sort of skipped it all together. The paper still looks good. This one here, I had everything pegged over my crafting space because that's what I do. I get a string, so I've got a light here, a light stand, and I've got another one there, and I actually string this up. And of course our heater, gas heater, is that way too. So I'm getting a lot of what's the word, directional heat this way. So when I'm trying to finish off the drying off, because I peel everything off at the top, because I've got a chair that sits safely away from the heater, getting that directional heat, and because it's got a fan, the gas heater. So just finishing off the last few you know, stages of drying, I just hang them up with pegs over my crafting space, so it's still in limited space. So but I did that process really quickly. But what I did with this, as it was hanging up, I just sort of gently scrubbed it. Sorry, I've been doing other things, projects, but no, I scrunched it and scrunched it very gently to get this effect. This was already torn earlier, but that's what that looks like. And the reason why you're seeing these kind of almost like little rivers of a map is because when I was doing the papers, remember how I had them scrunched up at the side? That's what causes that effect. And it gets really quite intense on the opposite side, as you can see there. So I'll just quickly show you these. Now, this was digital paper. I just grabbed whatever I had on hand and wasn't really thinking. So it tends to do a different job to, say, normal paper. So this is normal printer paper. So I'll just separate them. So normal printer paper, 80 GSM. I think this might be like 100 GSM or 108. So I just picked it up because I needed something really fast, so I wasn't fluffing around. And so it does, digital paper does do a little bit of a different job with the look of things. So that's what it's looking like. Okay. And like we said, see, can you see the dark edges there? Anyway, there are dark edges. So this still might appeal to you. You may not want it super grungy on the edges. Or you might want to consider using your ink pad to do it. The other way you can do it is you can put down your coffee or tea brew. Okay, so you've already coffee stained your paper. Sorry, some of it's quite old. I've been going through my stash and trying to use it up. Now I've only got 4 papers here. I thought, right, let's get into my stash. So anyway, we'll grab these and I'm going to do a really rough job. Safety caution. So just a voiceover, just to remind you, please be careful when doing this. The serrated knife I'm using is not sharp at all, but it could still bruise you if you're not careful. But also make sure, if you're worried, to have some form of protection over the hand that's holding the paper, be it mittens, safety gloves, whatever is best for your situation. I know I'm laboring the point, but it's important to me that you guys stay safe. This isn't for children, it's for adult crafters, but even as adults we need to be careful. So please remember safety first. So that you're going to have your coffee stain paper, and I do recommend that you have them already done. And this might be a bit challenging because, you know, it's not very thick. So as you can see, it's very challenging to cut not much paper. So this is really good for you to see. When you don't have much, you are kind of really... The fewer the papers, the more intense the distressed. The more papers, the less distressed. You'll find that the paper is stronger along here rather than that side. That's just the fibre of the paper and the weave, I guess. So you can see why we need more, because there's strength in numbers. So bundles of 10, well, I think bundles of 20, 15 or 20, but if you're inking, bundles of 10 possibly. It just really depends on you and your situation. You might not be able to hold a lot of things in your hand. This one didn't really, but look at this. So you can see why just one piece is really, you know, hard. So I'm just going to put them all together again. I'm going to try and see if I can hit those edges. That again is why we do a bunch together. Alright, so we've done our papers, and that's plenty. And so it's just, so you can do things like that. And don't be afraid, this is just paper, so you can be brutal as long as you don't hurt yourself. I still can't find my fingerless gloves. I have no idea. I've had to rearrange things in my crafting room. So my crafting room is a black hole. Things go missing, as you will get to know or already do know. Okay, so let's do this. Right, so what you're going to do is you're going to make a little thing, and then of course that can be poured back there and that can be used again. All right, so you're going to just stick it down. I mean, you might need to make the brew a bit dark. This might be just a very light brew. Okay, and then so you might need to sort of kind of go that way and that way. It will stick the papers together, but that's okay. Now bear with me, I need something waterproof again. I haven't really set myself up here very well. So I'm just going to dry this off. Yeah, so you want it completely dry. You don't really want to get all the papers wet. And then we're going to very carefully unpeel them. And you do get some cool effects. So I've always enjoyed doing this way as well. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hang these ones up. So I'll show you what I mean. So that annoying string that you see, the papers will be very, very fragile. So I'm going to actually fold them over and hang them this way rather than peg them up. All right. Now, I don't think my coffee brew was dark enough. If I had thought about it, I would have made it darker. I think if it was darker, it would be better. So I'm sorry, you're just looking at what's here. I'll switch it around because I think this looks nicer. Okay, so you can sort of get an idea. Okay, so as I'm chatting, as already mentioned, all I've done is over my crafting table, I've attached twine to one side of my lighting stands where I do my tutorial. So I've got two light stands, one on each side of my table. When I just want to finish off drying the top sheets that are coming off my tray, all I do is I either peg them up on this string that I attached to the other side of my light stand, and I let them air dry that way because they're in directional heat. But when I'm dealing with very fragile paper but I want to dry them quickly, all I have to do is drape them over as I've done now. Once the drying is done, I just untie it from one end. This is what you can do in your limited space. Was that when you're coffee tea staining and you want to do it in limited space, but if you're having to do it in winter, then as it comes off, not all the paper is completely dry. Rather than spreading them out everywhere, why not put a piece of string over, hang twine over your crafting table, or maybe next to your crafting table to accommodate your limited space. One that you can take down easily and pull up. Very simple tie up, something that you can easily dismantle. And therefore, while these are drying, these are air drying, these ones on here, and you can put quite a few up. I usually put a few together, and then I just use my little retro pegs, colored pegs, and away you go. Very good use of space, and they dry really fast. Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm back. As I was saying, I'm doing this on the fly. Now this is one of my other favorite techniques that I've done in the past, that I used to play around with a lot, and that is this kind of effect. So that's because we've just been letting the water, the coffee the paper sit in there, and of course it's going to travel in the direction, so it'll go up and it'll seep up, and as you're spinning it around, that's what it's going to do. So that's a really cool effect. But because it wasn't so dark, it's still not dark around the edges. This one's a little bit harder to tell because it was already a dark color. I'm sorry I didn't have anything better to show you, so they're no good. But this one here, you can see the waterline, the watermark around that, and that gives it a cool effect. But once again, it's very hard to distinguish if the papers have darkened around the edges. I don't think they have. So anyway, let's now just show you one last thing that you can do. So if all else fails, let's bring out the inks. So we've got Vintage Photo, but we've also got Walnut Stain. Now Walnut Stain is it's quite dark, so I don't mind this getting a stain. I know it might be a little bit harder for you to see, but we're going to get we won't get the Vintage Photo. Walnut Stain in this instance. And you can see how dark this is. You could use a bit of the coffee brew with this, if there's any left over. So let's just have a little play. Oh, look at that. That's pretty dark. Oof. Okay, so we might just water it down a bit more. This is just my little water bottle, and that's why I've got my gloves on. All right, let's just do another test run. So what I would recommend is just keep testing the papers, see what color you like, and you can darken it or lighten it. So it was very dark to begin with, and I think I've lightened it a bit. So anyway, let's just play. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the ones that aren't so obvious. So we'll just do it with this paper, but imagine you're doing it with a whole lot. So I'm going to just basically drip it in like we did before. Okay. The other papers that I did with you guys, so just so not to waste anything, and see what we get. So these, remember, were the white papers as well. Okay, well, the other one's just drying. I'm trying to rapidly dry it, and that's not part of this collection. Now the great news is I remembered where my fingerless gloves were. I've got my purple ones as well. I just have relocated things, and if I haven't used them for the last, I don't know, possibly 3 or 4 months, because my hands have improved with my eczema, and I've been really taking care of them. I haven't had to use them, which is really fantastic. These are quite long. That's another thing. If you're worried that you're going to hurt your fingertips, just get a glove or even a mitten. Maybe a mitten might be better. I don't know. Whatever is good, that will mean you're going to just give yourself that extra bit of protection when you're sawing into your papers. We might have to make this a little bit darker, but I think it might just be a bit weak. Okay. I might just add one more drop. Okay, so that was, this is the Distressed Ink and Walnut Stain. what would be the ideal thing is to get something that's a little bit more narrow. A very narrow, long pan would be a good idea. This is just too wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get it in that corner there. So that's roughly the colour. Let's play. So, all right, so here we go. I'm just going to just tap them in. And I'm just going to be brutal. So you might have to go, you know, backwards and forwards a little bit just to make sure everything is done. All right, so there we go. They're all done. It might not be dark enough, so what I would recommend is do it a few times. Don't give up. What I would suggest is let them dry. I'm going to put them on the other tray that I've got, but I'll protect that tray. And yeah, just put them in front of the heater or out in the sun, maybe with a brick in the center, just so that they don't fly away from you. And then if you're not happy with it being dark enough, then do it again and it'll build that color up, hopefully, at least. It should build it up. Or just make it darker. Just keep adding, make a little formula for yourself, add one drop and keep adding and adding until you get your happy color. So what I would recommend is get your strips of paper that you don't need, and then write the recipe on each one and then do it a test. Let it dry, see what color you get. If you like it, great, you know what you're going to get, but keep adding the drops, 1 drop, 10 drops, however many drops, however amount of water, and then you will know the right amount that you'll be happy with. All right, so let me put these near the heater and I'll be back. Okay, so this one has dried. Yeah, it's more you get this result. So that's what I used to want. I used to want something that was kind of plainer in the center but had that kind of watermark around it where the water has seeped in. So you can see it's a little bit darker on this one, so it's obviously darker than my coffee staining, which is pretty cool actually. I think it looks really cool as is. Now the other thing I wanted to show you, see these colors here? That's because it's releasing the coffee staining and some of the other techniques that I was using. It's releasing a green. Yes, it's releasing another color, which is pretty cool. So anyway, everyone, yeah, let's dry those, let them dry, and I will be back to complete this whole experience with you. Oh, what I might do is I might just use of this by using this up. So bear with me. We don't want to let anything go to waste. It does have a very coffee stained look, doesn't it? The walnut stain. It's a lovely color. It's actually kind of olivey green. An olivey green brown. I love mopping up. I always believe that the mop-ups are the way to go. They always look the best to me. I know it's very bizarre, but that's how I always feel. You don't need that much either. But yeah, they look so cool. So this is how I like to mop up what's left over, because then you get the coolest of papers. Alright, so I don't want to get these too wet. I'm going to just get my string. I'm just going to hang them over, but I'll try not to get them in your line of sight. Alright, so let's continue. So I've got them on either side of me. So see where my fingers are? Well, you can't see them, but they're on either side of me over my crafting table. And so we're going to just finish this off. May as well. So these are just for plain use. Sometimes, you know, so sometimes for myself I need plain papers. What I mean is I don't want them white, but I don't want them decorative even. You know, like I prefer sometimes, I need plain, a plainer coffee stain, if that makes sense. I don't mind, like I said, a bit of the white, but yeah. And I don't mind papers getting wrinkled. I think they look amazing. You can never have enough. You can never have enough of this. They are always handy. So if you've made a brew, use it all up. It's so worth it. And if you're in summer, why not make the most of it? Summer is going to mean you can get tons of papers done, and you're set for the winter months or the cooler months. So there's many ways that I do this. I don't necessarily always do it like this. Sometimes I do like to just soak them in a tray and then lay them on another tray. So I don't necessarily do it this way. It just depends on how much room I've got on my desk, my crafting desk, because I'm trying to not spread out beyond my crafting region. And that can be a bit tricky sometimes when you've got tons of projects on the go. So I'm just collecting all that moisture around. Alright, so let's go and check what we've already done. Okay, I might put the, I might dry these with the, you know, these heat tooly things. Okay. Okay, I'll just get these down, because that's supposed to be here and that's supposed to be there. I'll just move that out of the way and we'll continue this drying process. Yeah, it doesn't, this is really a great tool. Oh, sorry, I'll just get rid of the twine. So it's not string, everyone, it's twine. You can do it. Okay, so it's just twine. Nothing too invasive. Okay, so yeah, so this is by Wagner, and I have had heat dryers, what do we call them? Heat guns that you buy for crafting. I bought two of the same company. So I purchased one, and I hardly had it for very long. I thought maybe it was just a dud one, and then I tried, then I purchased another, and that didn't last long either. So I thought, right, let's forget about these wimpy tools and let's go for something hard yakka like a tradesman's tool. This one's got 2 settings, and so far so good. I'm really enjoying it, but it is like industrial in the sense that it's for a tradesman, and I find tradesman tool are so much better, and I use a lot of tradesman other things as well. I do choose extremely way out ways of doing things anyway, so I always have way out things. But this was really handy because that's the only sad thing about this. I can't stand it. Well, I can stand it. Yeah, see, it's just really inconvenient, and I don't want to burn myself. So this is what I have. I have that. And then when I'm not working on it, then I put that on top so that I don't burn myself. So it's just a reminder because I'm a clumsy crafter. Okay, so let's get drying and get this done and dust it. Okay, and one of the things that you can use, so, and also I use kitchen implements, obviously. I mean, you've seen me use anything and everything. So here we go. You're just going to put your papers in a napkin holder. Isn't that cool? Yeah, I use it basically for everything. So you're learning a lot of tricks of the trade here. Please everyone, again, safety, caution. This is a very hot tool. It can burn you, and it can also burn your papers or start burning your papers. Please keep an eye on things. So be careful if you're going to be using a heat gun. I'd probably use a hairdryer possibly to dry these because you don't want to start a fire, everybody. Please be careful. Especially if you're new at this, you can easily start burning things down. So please be mindful. So that's why I prefer the lower heating, because I know I'm going to be safe. But it is quite hot, so you have to be careful. Now I have to put this back on because I'm most liable to just knock it and then burn myself. I'm so silly. Okay, well, I have to say, even though I like the effect, it's very, very distracting, this. So I'm going to put it over there because it's annoying me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, poor piece of paper over there. Okay, this is what it's looking like. Again, really cool result. But it certainly gives it that cool effect all the way around. So see that watermark all the way around. And this one, that was the first one we did. Let's compare. So you do get an aged look, don't you? I mean, the papers, the color of the papers lend themselves to that. And remember, it's not going to be flat, so you will be able to see that kind of inked look anyway. Okay. Now the only thing doing it this way, especially if you're going to use the heat gun. If you're going to use the heat gun, it will crisp up your papers. You don't want that. So you want them to dry as naturally as possible rather than speed drying them with a hairdryer or whatever, because it will crisp it up and that makes it eventually crumble. If you do it the way that I showed you right at the very beginning of part 1, you will get beautiful results with the papers. They're not brittle, they're just pliable, they're soft, as I explain here. Papers are not crispy at all. They're fluid, they're soft, they're beautiful. So let's do some comparisons now. So I'm going to put the 3 of them like this. Okay, first one, nothing. Real industrial peeled effect, massive peeling, whereas this is gentler. So if you like this, you're going to have to do like 4 at a time, smaller batches, but you will get a lot of a rougher look. If you want a finer look, then you're going to need to have 15 to 20. That's what I used, and but when you're inking it up, you might want to have 10 in the bundle. Just to clarify, if you want that fine distress look, you'll need more bundles to work with at one time of papers. So 15, 20 to or more, depending on how you cope with gripping the papers tight. That will depend on you. So experiment. For the heavy distress, the fewer the papers means they don't have much support, and therefore it makes it challenging to distress them in a refined way. It means that you're going to be distressing them heavily as sort of a natural kind of sciencey gravity kind of thing, and that's why I managed the super distress, because the fewer the paper, it makes it challenging to keep it really tight and firm, and therefore that's the results. It slows down your ability to multiply your papers and speed it up, but at least it will be still faster than what you would be doing 1 page or 2 at a time. So you could go up to 5, maybe even 6 pages. Play around with it and see how you go. The natural byproduct of a few pages put together means it's going to be a flimsier support, and therefore it's harder for us to regulate the effort and pressure when distressing with our distress tool, which then becomes the technique. So that's how it becomes a technique, which is required to get those super distressed results. So the fewer the papers, that's the key for this technique to work. The larger amount of papers gives us that fine distressed. The fewer, obviously, the more distressed. I hope that makes sense. So that's what they look like all together. So what do you prefer? Let me know in your comments. So this is just natural. Do you prefer just the natural look? So that's more the peeled effect. That's more the fine effect, and this is no effect. No effect, fine distress, major distress. So let's have a look at it from this angle. So you could number it 1, 2, and 3. 1 is neutral, 2 is fine one, 3 is the real distressed look, the grunge distress. Okay, so there we go again. 1, 2, 3. And there we go again. 1, 2, 3. They do look good together actually. This is the digital paper, so that tends to be a bit stiff and that can crumple. I wouldn't want to be heat drying it either, because that's just going to crisp up your papers and then it just feels horrible, unless you want that. Alright, so that was number 3, and that's the heavy distress grunge, but this is the fine distress, which I absolutely adore. I love that look, but that might not be for everyone. And then you just have the normal papers, and that the soft, gentle rippling effect there, and you might prefer that. Okay, so that's the rough ones. Rough, fine. I'm making you confused. Neutral. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really a delight to have you with me. I hope that's been helpful. As I'm just explaining here, thank you very much for joining me for part 1 and part 2 of this series of how to edge distress your plain paper, not cardstock, but plain paper, how to edge distress multiple pages at one time. So you get to see how to distress those edges and to also ink them up and speed up that process. I hope it's been helpful. So I've shown you a number of different ways of doing things. Pick and choose whatever works for you. You might need to watch this a couple of times if you're new to this. So now part 3 is still a continuation of how to edge your papers and get that distressed look. But also part 3 will be kind of like the concluding part of edge distressing papers. And we also look at how to do them just a few pages that are even lightweight. So again, it will give you more ideas and maybe different ways of approaching it. But I wanted to give you the entire experience of how to approach it, especially if you're new to this. If you're not, this might be something also that you might want to try that might be a little bit different to your usual coffee tea staining and distressing your edges. But what I like about this series, it's all about the distressed edged look with multiple pages at once. It speeds up this process, especially if you're going for that look. Rather than doing that tedious one page at a time, this is about attacking it all at one go. So I hope that's proved helpful, and thank you for joining me for part 2, and I will make sure I get part 3 up as soon as I've edited it. But thank you everyone, and I'll see you then. Thank you everyone. I will see you next time. Please take care of your lovely selves. Thank you. Bye.